So welcome. Hopefully you're all here for the 2026 Beach Survey Volunteer Training. If you're not, well, stick around. You might learn something. You might decide to join. But we're really happy to have you here this evening, and thank you for taking time out to join us. It really does take a village, and it's not lost on us just how much effort and dedication everyone puts into monitoring our birds and the marine environment. And that's just a pretty incredible thing. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Shannon Bolt. I'm the program coordinator for the Salish Sea Guillemot Network Pigeon Guillemot Breeding Survey. And I'm here this evening with Govinda Holtby. She's from the Whidbey Group, and she's going to be helping me out tonight. And actually, before we start, I'm going to pass it over to her for a few minutes, and then we will dive into the training. So I'll stop sharing, and Govinda, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so, oh, I'm trying to share my screen. There's something on. Can everybody see this crazy desktop of mine? Can you see it,
Yes, ma'am.
Shannon? Okay,
I
thank
see your
you.
desktop. You should be able to flip
Fabulous.
shares. There you go.
Okay, so just a couple of quick slides, and we want to start with a land acknowledgement. And we certainly recognize that we are on many of the territories of the many indigenous tribes. And I always kind of struggle with these land acknowledgements because we acknowledge and then that's it. Nothing beyond that. So really, that's a great first step. And I want to continue with a couple of slides. And I brought this up a couple of years ago. I love this quote. There's no better remedy for theft of land than land. Good idea. So there's been a couple of proposals about having control of the national parks go back to the tribes. Great idea. And if you feel so inclined, I think we have maybe 70 or so people now. We do have the White House switchboard for whatever good that might do, and our Washington state senators, and let them know. Let's start a argument for these reparations. Also, I know we have a couple of our friends to the north, and the country of Canada is about 10 years into their Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I invite everybody to sort of just poke around the internet and, take a look at, maybe what other folks are doing as well. So there's more to be done than just acknowledgement. And we are, luckily we're an environmental organization. We're not meeting here on an oil summit, or anything like that. So we're definitely thinking about the land and the peoples that were here and still are here, by the way. So just keep that in mind as maybe you're walking to the beach in the beginning of June and, it's early morning. Maybe you haven't had a cup of coffee and just, kind of reflect on that, and I invite you to poke around the internet and maybe call your senators, and let's just maybe it's a little slow. Let's just keep our foot on the pedal. Okay, and back to you, Shannon.
All right. Thank you so much, Govinda.
Sure.
It is good to be mindful when we're out there on the beach, just remembering who the land belongs to. So thank you for that. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to share. All right. So the plan for this evening, there we go. All right, so we do have a lot of new folks here this evening. We're excited to say that we're expanding into BC. So we're really happy to have a lot of new volunteers up in Canada joining us this evening. So I wanted to make sure that I gave a little bit of history about the survey, talk a little bit about our data use, who's using our data, And then I'll dive into a survey overview. We'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the survey and what to expect. And then Govinda's going to walk us through filling out the beach data sheet. And we'll cover some tips and tricks of the survey. We'll get you acquainted with our survey toolbox, and then we'll finish off with an invitation to Whidbey's Guillemot Appreciation Day. And hopefully we will have plenty of time for a good question and answer session. So we have a lot to cover. I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking a lot. And hopefully I won't forget anything, but if I do, I'm counting on you guys to catch it and ask Govinda and I at the end your questions. So be thinking about anything that doesn't make sense or anything you're curious about, and we'll try to answer questions at the end. So, and no, they are not pigeons, as he's telling this pigeon here. All right, so just a little bit of history about SSGN. It started on Whidbey Island over 20 years ago, and it was co-founded by Frances Wood and Dr. Phyllis Kind. Frances is still our director of SSGN today and a mentor to all of us. And they started this with the support of the Whidbey Audubon Society, who is also still our major sponsor. So we are a program of Whidbey Audubon. And now, of course, the survey has really grown. Whidbey did an amazing job of dialing in our protocol, working with Fish and Wildlife and other researchers with the universities in the area. And so now we have this really robust protocol that we use. And so now we are made up of 8 different survey regions. We're all independently coordinated. Of course, as I mentioned, we're happy to welcome in BC to the group. Oh, bless you.
Gesundheit.
I think I'll mute you. Sorry about that, but all right. So we have expanded, and each of these regions has their own organizational sponsor. And they also contribute to SSGN monetarily. So we couldn't be SSGN without all of these folks. Oops. Let's see. There we go. So as you might guess, this is a major group effort. We had at least 243 beach volunteers last year. I always think these numbers are a little conservative because we were relying on what was reported at the time, 65 colonies. And I mean, look at the volunteer hours that were put in last year. And this is a minimum because there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes with coordination that doesn't get recorded. So it's pretty incredible the power that we have in connecting as this network with 8 regions. So when you're sitting out on the beach doing your survey every week, just know there are other teams out there all across the Salish Sea, probably every day of the week. You can bet that someone else is on the beach surveying the birds as well. So these are our partners and sponsors. Whidbey Audubon is our major sponsor, and then each region has its own. So we have some different bird alliances, Audubon groups, nature centers, Birds Canada. We are also very fortunate to have the support of Washington Fish and Wildlife and the University of Washington and the Puget Sound Ecosystem Monitoring Program. All right, so why do we survey the guillemots? I really think it was fortuitous that Frances and Phyllis started this survey over 20 years ago. I don't think they had any idea what it was going to become. But as it happens, the state of Washington, through the Puget Sound Partnership, has designated pigeon guillemots as an indicator species for Puget Sound health. So they are an official Puget Sound vital signs species. They're one of 4 seabirds. So the fact that our survey is here and that we have all of this data that we can give to the state that helps them track the trends of these birds, it's really amazing. And then, of course, we always want to help out students, professors, people in research, help them answer important questions about environmental change and population dynamics. We of course want to connect people with the marine environment and with the birds, so we're always looking to promote stewardship of those ecosystems. And of course, possibly one of the biggest reasons is that we just love the birds. We're very attached to them, and so we want to make sure they're doing okay, and we want to keep an eye on them. So how our data is used, I touched on the fact that Fish and Wildlife is using our data. They look at it every year and they combine it with their aerial population surveys. So they use it to help track the trends of the guillemots. We're also reporting to our funders, and we like to keep our community abreast of what's happening with the birds. This helps connect people to place and helps them become better stewards. Most recently, we also contributed to a Navy environmental impact assessment on Whidbey Island. So, it was just really amazing that we had this data to give when they came to ask us. So that felt like a big accomplishment, and we were pretty proud that we had that available. And then working with folks at UW, Dr. Sarah Converse she's been one of our biggest fans and supporters. And she's had students working with our data, building models, and she's also planning this upcoming year to be looking at our data and doing some deeper dives into analyzing it. All right, so let's get to our survey. We'll try to break it down for you and answer as many questions as we can. Obviously, can't get too deep, but we'll try to cover as many points as we can. So just looking at the timeline, we run from the first week of June roughly through September. So this year we're asking folks to start no later than the week of June 7th. And many folks are actually going to start earlier than this because some of our colonies historically we see activity start fairly early. So some folks are going to be starting the week of May 31st or even the week before that. So we'll leave that up to you all when you're going to start, as long as you start no later than the first week of June. And then the birds, they tell us when we're done. So, sometimes we have late burrows that will go almost until October, but most birds are finished roughly around the end of August or early September. And then we're surveying weekly. It's really important for me to mention that we're surveying Sunday through Saturday defines the survey week. And the reason this is important to remember is sometimes maybe you have some bad weather or someone was sick and you bumped your survey a few days and then you decided we're going to survey on Sunday. Well, that's already in the next week. So what it looks like when we crunch the data is we have a missed week and then we end up with a week that has two surveys in it, which just adds an extra level of complexity to the data analysis. So just keep in mind Sunday through Saturday. Saturday's the last day to survey for that survey week. And then we're surveying for 1 hour. The surveys must be completed before or by 9 a.m. So what that means is you need to be on the beach by 7:45. We have a 15-minute settling period. So then your survey would start promptly at 8 o'clock. You'll be done by 9. If you're an early bird, you're welcome to go out earlier than that as soon as it's light enough to see the birds and count the birds. And then, so the end point of the survey, as I mentioned, the birds are going to tell us when they're done. We ask for a minimum of 10 weeks surveyed, and that 10 weeks must include 2 weeks of no activity at the end of the survey season. So if you go 10 weeks and you still have birds on the water holding fish, they still have chicks in the burrows. And that means you need to keep going until you have 2 weeks with no breeding activity. And really, once the chicks have fledged, the birds tend to disappear. So it'll be a pretty stark contrast in activity. And then once you have 2 weeks of that, you're done. We do have some exceptions, but if you ever have any questions about when you should end, you should talk to your regional coordinator about that before you stop. All right, so collecting data. We're actually collecting data on colony populations. So we're doing 3-point counts during the survey, and we're counting all of the birds that are associating with the colony. We're not counting birds that are way out in the deep water. We just want to know who's here in the near shore. This is like their homeroom, and we want to know who's checking into the homeroom, who's interacting with the bluff and with each other. And then we're also collecting data on prey types and delivery frequency. So every time the birds visit the burrow, we're also recording no prey visits. So they're visiting the burrow without prey, and we're recording prey types and the times of delivery. And then disturbances, we want to know, what disturbs the birds? What causes them to stop their normal behaviors? And so I think we all, or most of us probably know who enemy number one is. The eagle up there, he will make Piggy react. So I do want to say we want to define the disturbance as anything that causes the guillemots to change their behavior. So they actually have a reaction, a measured reaction. This could be fleeing, diving, screaming. We've actually seen guillemots come into shore when an orca has gone cruising past. So anything that causes them to change their behavior, that's a disturbance. If an eagle flies over and they just don't even bat an eye, we're not going to record that because they continued on with what they were doing. So we're just looking at things that cause them to stop their breeding behavior. All right, so let's do a little bit of a gear check. You don't want to find yourself on the beach missing something essential. So you want to make sure that you have these things with you when you go out. Binoculars, of course. And I want to mention these don't have to be fancy. You don't have to run out and buy the latest Swarovski glass model binoculars. We're counting birds in the near shore, so most of the survey will be done by your eyeballs, and the binoculars are just there to assist you. So, but just make sure you have a pair handy. You'll want some kind of a beach chair or stool to sit on. That funny bucket you see up there on the left-hand side, that's actually a homemade swivel bucket. So that saves the neck if you're having to turn around a lot while you're watching the birds. We actually have instructions for building one of those on our website. So, but camp stools work. If you happen to have a nice piece of driftwood you can sit on, that would work. Make sure that you're wearing layers. It can be cool out there. And we don't want to come out like a neon sign. We want to try not to disturb the birds. So we're going to do the best we can to act like driftwood to blend in with the beach. So we're going to wear muted clothing, blues, grays, things that blend in with the beach. Of course, you'll want a phone or a watch so you can keep track of time. This is really important with counting birds as well. And a good pair of hiking shoes or boots. We are often walking on cobble or slippery surfaces. You'll want your data sheet, clipboard, and pen. Some people use their phone or they use a little notebook. I like to use my data sheet, so whatever you're using, make sure you have that on hand. And then, of course, a burrow map. And the burrow map is going to tell you which burrows are active and the burrow number. Everyone in your colony team should be using the same burrow map so that you're recording the same burrow numbers. All right, so we'll talk about the burrow map a little bit. This is just a really simple burrow map. This is one actually that I used last year. And what we did is we just circled the burrows as they became active and we gave them a number. And then we use those same numbers all through the season. So you'll want to print out a wide version or wide view of your bluff. I like to include some landmarks, a little bit of the beach. That way, if you ever have substitutes go out, they know exactly where they need to be and where your colony bluff is located and where the burrows are located. And a thing about the numbering, you want to be using up to 3 alphanumeric characters, capital letters, no spaces, no symbols. And you can either write with a Sharpie pen, you can use a markup tool on your phone or your computer, however you want to mark it up. But everyone in the team should have the same map. So here's another map. This is from Shore Meadows on Whidbey Island. I just thought it was really cool. A lot of people like to use interesting names for their burrows. Here you can see they have a troll face on the bluff, and so they've got the ears of the troll, they've got the nostril, and they've been really creative in how they've named these, but they've used our naming convention. So above Madrona is AM, right of troll is ROT. So you can get creative if it helps you remember the burrow numbers. I thought this was a really creative, great way to do it. And some bluffs use the same burrow numbers every year. Some people renumber them every year as the burrows become active. And just to give you some examples of what are acceptable here, you can see 1N, B12. What you want to avoid are using like the number symbol or a period. Sometimes we see things like left of branch or under the stop sign, or, just interesting text versions of burrow naming. And the reason it's important not to do this is because we need to be consistent from week to week. And we find we often get the most mistakes when there are spaces or symbols involved. Not everyone is always recording the same thing. So then it looks like we've got multiple of the exact same burrow, some missing spaces, some spelled differently. We just want everyone to be using the same burrow number. All right, so a little bit about prey IDs. I know this is something, especially for new surveyors, people are a little nervous, like I don't know that I'm going to be able to ID the prey or that I'm going to be able to get it down. I promise you, you're going to get it down. And I think you'll get it down pretty quickly. The thing to remember, we often see gunnels. That's a really popular prey type. In fact, it's the most popular prey type that we see, especially down here. I'll be curious what you guys see up in BC. But the gunnel is a really elongated, skinny, sort of ribbon-like fish. Some people say it looks a little bit like an eel, and it's, very noodly. So you'll see there's a lot of movement possible here. So it really is obvious when the bird comes in. They usually land in the near shore and they'll show it to you. So you'll get a good look generally before they deliver it up to the burrow. And gunnels come in all different colors. So don't be surprised if you see a bright green one, a bright red one. It's still a gunnel. As long as it has this elongated body and it looks sort of like a ribbon, we're going to call it a gunnel. And I want to bring this guy up. We see this fish a lot. It's a Pacific snake prickleback. Not everyone can tell the difference between a prickleback and a gunnel. From a distance, it just looks like a gunnel. It's a long, skinny fish. It's kind of eel-like. But you might also notice that there's a difference. So we're going to record these as gunnels as well. This is just because it's too hard to expect everyone to tell the difference. So we're lumping them together. But if you notice this fish, gunnel. So the second most popular fish is going to be the sculpin. You can see already, or hopefully you can see that it has a different body shape. I was trying to figure out the best way to describe its body, but some people say it's sort of more triangular shaped. It's wider at the head and skinnier at the tail. It's, definitely not as long, although I've seen some monster sculpins come in for chicks. So there are some really large ones, but I think you'll notice right away that there's a different shape to it. It's got some spines, its fins are a little bit bigger. And again, the birds are going to show it to you in most cases. So hopefully you will be able to tell what the sculpin is. And then we have a category called other or unknown prey. You don't have to identify these types of prey. You can write it in the notes if you want. If you can see, okay, he's bringing in a shrimp or a sand lance, or the bottom right is a shiner perch. You can write that in the notes, but this will just be recorded as an other or unknown type of fish. All right, so I apologize. There's a lot of text on this slide, but I just wanted to touch on counting strategies. I think most colonies, established colonies, will already have their own strategy, but we've refined our strategies a little bit after receiving some guidance last year from Sarah Converse at University of Washington. So there are three basic strategies that you'll use to count the birds, and it really depends on your colony and the way it's shaped and the landscape. That will determine how you're counting the birds. So a really popular strategy is the single observer strategy. This works best at a colony that's usually smaller, usually has birds that are completely intermingled. So you can't really draw a line between them. And you'll want to have at least one vantage point where that observer can count all of the birds. So they can see all of the birds on the water, all of the birds on the bluff. And you'll probably want to choose a seasoned surveyor, someone who's been doing this for a little while and who's really comfortable, knows their birds, and is comfortable counting them. And then everyone else, all of the other observers, they'll be recording burrow visits, prey types, disturbances, all of the other elements of the survey. Okay, the other strategy is called additive. So you might use this strategy if you have a really long bluff, extensive bluff, and one where you can sort of separate the different observation points by landmarks. And then you would have each observer count the birds that are in their section. And the real trick to this is that they all have to be counted at the exact same time. So that's when your phone or your watch will be really important, and that everyone knows exactly what time you're doing the start, middle, and end count, because at the end you'll add everyone's counts together. And I also want to mention, you'll see these little guillemots at the bottom with the red X. We're not counting birds that are way out in the deep water. We sometimes see other guillemots come through or float around and forage out in the deeper water. We're really just counting the birds in the near shore that are interacting with our bluff and with each other. So then we have a hybrid strategy. This one works really well if you have a vantage point that can easily see all of the birds on the water. But because of the shape of the bluff or the intricacies, and maybe there's a boulder that sticks out somewhere, and maybe they can't see birds that are ledge sitting. So in this case, you would have one observer. It might be the person in the middle. Sometimes it's the person at the end if they have a really good view along the beach. They're going to count the birds in the water. And then each observer will count the ledge sitters or birds on the beach in their own section. And those will be added at the end. Let's see, did I miss anything there? I think I got everything. So, if you're ever confused about how to count the birds, check in with your regional coordinator. You can check in with me as well, and we can help you work through your particular colony and the unique features of your colony. All right, so I thought to add this slide. I did a site visit at Camino last season, and this bird came through, the white-winged scoter. And I thought, I can see now how somebody might count a white-winged scoter as a guillemot. It is a larger bird than the guillemot. So up close, you're going to see this is not the same bird. It's much heftier. Our little guillemot's more like football sized. And you'll notice that the white wing patch is a little bit different and it has a different bill. But because it does have that flash of white on the wing, I can see that maybe a newer surveyor, someone who's not as trained in seabird IDs, might get this one confused. So the important thing to note here, these guys shouldn't be interacting with the colony in the bluff. So they're probably a little further out, more in the deeper water. You shouldn't be counting birds out that far anyways. But sometimes it happens that the birds get a little bit close to the guillemots. So I wanted to bring this guy up. We don't generally see these guys in the South Sound, but I know in the North Sound, you guys get a few of those. We also have some alcid cousins. Sometimes these guys can look a little bit guillemotish. The marbled murrelet, for example. But you'll notice it's a little more squat in the water. So if the profile doesn't look right, it's probably not a guillemot. And again, like the common mirror, they're going to be out in the deeper water. So hopefully you're not counting those birds anyways. But I just wanted to show them to you because sometimes it can be a little confusing. Okay, now these are guillemots. They look a little different than the ones that we usually see that are in their full breeding plumage. Sometimes at the beginning of the season, we might see some variation, birds in transition. We also see birds in transition towards the end of the season. And sometimes, like the guy in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a non-breeding bird mid-breeding season. So that picture was taken, I believe, towards the end of June. So it can happen, but these are all guillemots, and hopefully by their shape, you'll recognize them, and they will probably also be interacting with the colony birds if they belong to the colony. All right, so with that, I am going to stop sharing and hand this over to Govinda, and she will walk us through the beach data sheet.
Okay, fabulous. So let me try and remember how I can share my screen again. Okay, share screen. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
No, not yet.
No. Oh dear. Okay, uh-oh. Hang on a sec. Oh dear. Let's see. Come back here.
There we
Okay.
go. We got it.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so let's put that in play. Okay, this is our beach data sheet. This is the front and the back. And so we're gonna fill it out as a mock survey. And you can get this on the website, download it, and it should say 2026 on there, or at least in the bottom left, it'll say revised 4/3/2025, which is our current one. So here we are, Pigeon Guillemot survey beach data sheet, and we're going to type in Double Bluff, which is a colony here on Whidbey Island. Our survey date is 6/12 because we always survey on Fridays, which is almost the end of that survey week. Start time 8 o'clock. That is the very latest that you want to start your survey because you need to end it by 9 o'clock. So we're cutting it a little close that day, but we made it. It's week 1. And as Shannon mentioned before, the survey is going to go on at least 10 weeks. Sometimes it goes on 13. It just depends on your colony, but week 1 is that first week. So we type in our team lead and our observers. We have 2 observers that day, Michelle and Gil Amat. As for the tide, I use the NOAA tides here, and you can see that around 8 o'clock, it's below 0. It's a negative tide, and it's about a 1.5, so we will type that in. And it is a negative tide, and it's on its way out, so we're going to circle outgoing. Okay. As for our Paigu counts, as Shannon mentioned, we are really doing just 3 point-in-time counts. It's not a contest. We're not trying to get the highest number. It's really just like Christmas bird count, just a snapshot of what we see out there, just a survey. And basically, when I'm the counter, I'll go slow if it's a windy day because the waves, the guillemots kind of like are in between those crests. Just make a slow sweep with your binoculars, and then I'll hit it again with my binoculars down because we do want to make sure that it's the guillemots that are really associated with the colony and sort of, in the shore a little bit. So our first count which will be at the very beginning of our survey, 8 o'clock, 17. Our second count, which is halfway through at 8:30 in the survey, it's 15. And then just before, at the end of the survey, we do our last sweep and at 6. Volunteer time. So if you have a lot of people on your team, you're going to start clicking up quite the hours. But for here on this survey, we just have 2 folks, and I have a table for each setting here. One person lives an hour away, round trip, so a half hour away, and the other person, hour and a half round trip. Of course, there's that settling in time. Takes us a little while to get down to the beach. We got to park our cars and get all our gear together, walk across the field, and, get our sections down. Of course, the 1 hour survey, and then the lead will be that 15-minute data entry. So we'll tally all that up, and our volunteer time for that day is 5.75 hours. Okay, and on to disturbances. So we do have an example here that is written, and we have what we would think would be your most common disturbances. And these are not really our disturbances. I mean, you can be disturbed all you want, but it's about the guillemots, not us. So the eagle, the beach walker, walker with dog, motorized boat, non-motor boat, an unknown. Sometimes the guillemots will just fly off the water and I will have no idea what happened, but clearly it's something that they see that I don't. Maybe it's that orca, right? Who knows? And then the other is just other cause. So here's our example, and that we read that as a walker with dog. The disturbance started at 8:48 and it ended. Well, it's 9 o'clock, and that end for no, it did not end, but the survey ended. So we put that in because you're done at 9. And then, type in or write in the example, PGs flew out beyond the kelp and stayed out there until the survey end. So I have another example. This is kind of a common one. We get a lot of raptors cruising the bluffs. And so here we have a red-tailed hawk, hitting the bluffs, and the PGs just scatter out on the water. And in this case, it started at 8:20, and they realize the hawk left, and they kind of come back to sort of normal behavior. And in this instance, maybe 8 minutes. And I put a yes because the disturbance ended and the survey is still, continuing. I do want to mention at this point, we want to use our very nicest, neatest handwriting. This is an official survey, and maybe that morning it's been kind of rainy or windy, so rewrite it, or even better yet, type it in to officially, send it off. Because as so famously written in Maria's book, we don't want any red-tailed hawks. So make sure that you're writing red-tailed hawk. And just your neatest and nicest handwriting. And the other thing to mention is back in the day, we used to all write this in pencil. We're not doing pencil anymore. We're doing hard ink. So no pencils, just ink or, typed out on the computer for these survey sheets. Let's see. And then down below, you can type in, or write in your general survey notes. I don't know, was it really windy or stormy out or hard to see too much kelp out there, hard to see the guillemots, whatever. You can, write in a little note. Okay, so our next page, this is our burrow data. And then here on the left-hand side, we have a sheet that you'll take with you of your prey ID card. And we have number 1 here is that sculpin that Shannon talked about, that bull head of a fish with the triangle body. A lot of the volunteers call it sculpin mouth open. I got a friend who calls it a double ugly because they're kind of a bull head of a fish. And then the gunnel, that long eel-like fish. Up on the north end, here on Whidbey, and I don't know, maybe you folks up in the Sunshine Coast might get this too, but a lot of perch that we get. So there's a lot of other prey. And so by all means, write it in if you know it, but if not, then it's just, unknown. So page 2, make sure you still type in your colony name, which I have here at the top. Survey date, same day, still that Friday, and it's still week 1. So we have our example shown with burrow ID A1. And as the morning goes on, this is how it plays out, basically. Okay, so first off, we have a visit to the burrow at 8:10. It's not a ledge sit. It's not the zoomies or a touch and go. The guillemot actually disappears into that burrow. Doesn't have a fish. It just flies in. We take that as, they're checking it out, and maybe eventually they'll be laying an egg and incubating an egg and delivering fish. But for now, it's that visit to a burrow. So that's an important one to record. So that happens at 8:10. Next up, A1, 8:15, gunnel shows up. So the guillemot flies in with that ribbon-like, eel-like fish. Next up, another visit to the burrow. And then at 8:37, another gunnel. And then at 8:46, one of those sculpins. I have another example here. Again, just another burrow ID. We'll call it C2. And at 8:11, we have a gunnel. B6, 8:12, there's a sculpin. 8:19, visit to the burrow. Again, the guillemot actually disappears into the burrow. Not one of those ledge sits, because they do like to do that too and hang outside, but we don't count that. A12, another burrow is now activated, I guess. And a visit happens at 8:31. And then up here, back C2 gets a gunnel at 8:40. And as Shannon mentioned before, we really just want those 3-digit, either a letter or a number, to identify your burrow. So you can't do D/stroke 6. Number hashtag 28, nope. Number 2 with lowercase d, no. And again, that hashtag can't be accepted. Nor can burrow next to the stairs. We do ask that you enter your survey into the database within a week. I think Dave will do maybe it's like a midsummer sort of how we're doing and where our numbers are. So it's crucial that we're really that up to date week by week, so we can tell what's happening, sort of in real time as the survey goes on. And there's my not so subtle clue to send this back to Shannon.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, that was wonderful. Yeah, I also wanted to add on to what Govinda said about entering data weekly. It allows us to catch mistakes, or sort of sometimes folks get stuck in a habit of doing something that maybe could be better, like using the wrong burrow numbers or something like that. And so Dave and I usually can catch that if we're just glancing over the entries for the week. And so we can catch it early and correct anything before the whole season goes by. And then you have to do a lot of editing at the end of the season. So it'll save the QA/QC folks some work if we can catch some of those things early on as we go through the season. All right, so I'm just going to talk briefly about the burrows not visible protocol. And I think this doesn't apply to most people. Oops, I need to make this big. Oops. Okay, hopefully you guys are looking at the burrows not visible right now. So this is sort of an addition to our traditional protocol. And this only really applies to folks who can't uh, see distinct burrows or they can't define distinct burrows. This is sometimes the case when we have really complicated structures that people are monitoring. So, like I said, it's really just a handful over the entire network. But what we do with these surveys is it becomes more of a population survey where you're still counting all of the birds that are associating with that breeding area. But because you can't identify distinct burrows, we're just lumping all prey deliveries into one burrow ID. So when these get entered into our database, the burrow ID is called BNV, which is burrows not visible. And then you're still recording the times of deliveries so that we can see what types of prey types they're using and in what proportion. But we're just not recording which burrows they're going to. So it's a little bit different, but I just wanted to touch on that really quickly for folks who are reading through the protocol and then they say, what's this burrows not visible thing here? All right, so tips and tricks. These are just some things that we've learned over the years surveying the birds. One thing it's a real thing, no eye contact. So sometimes you'll notice that the birds are really slow to deliver or they seem extra nervous. They'll actually look at you on the beach and they might look at you, look at the burrow, look back at you. This means they're really uncomfortable with you being there. And I found, as have a lot of other surveyors, if you just pretend you're not looking at them, then they can relax a little bit. And then sometimes they will actually make the burrow delivery the minute you just kind of avert your eyes. Try not to look at them directly. Sometimes I just put my hood up and I kind of shrink back. So that they think that I'm really not interested in them. Of course, I'm still watching them out of the corner of my eye, but it really does work. So if you see this happening, give that a try. The other thing, we kind of talked about the binoculars, how you use the binoculars on the beach. Uh, we really don't want you to be relying on the binoculars to watch the whole survey. The binoculars are really just there to assist you in prey IDs. Sometimes when there are some waves and you've got a lot of birds clumped together, the binoculars help you count little guillemot heads when you're doing your population counts. But to do the survey properly, you need to be able to take in the big picture. And if you're looking like this, you're going to miss something. So, you know, do your population count, zoom in, see what kind of prey they're holding, and then put the binos down and see what happens next. So we don't want you to miss a good wind up and delivery of prey because you're, looking at one bird with your binos. And then, of course, safety first. Hopefully, this goes without saying, but we want to make sure that you're not going out there when conditions are unsafe. So check the tides ahead of time, check the weather, just make sure that conditions are going to be safe out there. If there's, especially for the boat surveys up in Canada, if there's too much fog, we don't want you going out. If there's too much wave action and things are going to be dangerous, don't go out. So sometimes we've had years where we've had a lot of smoke out there. That's also unsafe. I know I've seen a few surveyors go out with N95s on when it gets really smoky, but if you don't feel safe, don't go and just plan accordingly if you can. And then, consider saving that first cup of coffee until after the survey. I see some people say bring your breakfast and your tea out there, but you want to remember that you're on a beach and there's no bathroom, and you also don't want to be a disturbance. So save the coffee. We all know what happens when we drink coffee. We have to go. So just you'll get it as soon as the survey's done, and it's something to look forward to. And then, of course, when you're out there, just have a wonderful time. Enjoy the morning, take it all in, and just feel the gratitude of being out there with the birds. It really is a gift. All right, so I know we've kind of been tooting the horn of our new and beautiful website, but I wanted to draw your attention specifically to our survey toolbox that we have. It really is your best friend. We get a lot of questions over the season, which, we love questions and happy to answer them, but it might be faster and easier. You might be able to find the answer to your question on our website. So, our survey toolbox you can access by going to the volunteer tab, pulling it down, and selecting survey toolbox. And so the kinds of things you're going to find in here, we have all of our survey training videos. We also have our data systems. There's a link to the data systems training. So those who will be doing data entry and QA/QC, you'll find those resources in there. And then all of the survey training resources, such as the beach data sheet, our protocol. We've got Prey ID cards in there for you, and several other resources. I mentioned that there are some instructions in there for how to build your own bucket swivel seat. So if that's something that sounds interesting, you can find that in our survey toolbox. And plus, we've got a lot of other things on the website that you can sort of browse through. We've got frequently asked questions and a story map. So a lot of really great information on the website. And then I think, Govinda, I'm going to hand it back over to you really quickly before we do our Q&A.
Okay. Having a hard time figuring out sharing of the screen. Geez. Well, I wanted to talk about Guillemot Appreciation Day. And I have that here. We will be in a new venue. It's been Ottenhunter for, I don't know, the last 10 or so years. But we're in a new spot now, still in Langley, at Soundview Center, which is just up the hill, just up the hill on Anthe Street, if you know Langley. And if you don't know Langley, come join us. There's the address. It's from 3 to 5 p.m. on Saturday, June 27th. Maria will be there to talk about her book, The Bird with Flaming Red Feet. We will have, of course, our famous Guillemot activities. We're cutting out felt feet. We've got our trifold display with data findings from our previous year, Guillemot themed appetizers, and we will have glass pours of sparkling water and wine for cash. So bring cash, and it'll be a grand old time from 3 to 5 p.m. on Saturday, which I believe is the official International Guillemot Appreciation Day that started over on the East Coast on the 27th. And so we will be there, and I hope everybody can join us. And back to you, Shannon.
All right, thank you. And I can vouch for the fact that it's a very fun time. There will be singing. There's a Guillemot song. And now Maria Ruth's brother has also written a song about surveying Guillemot. So lots of fun and lots of good folks. So yeah, do join if you can. All right, so we wanted to open it up for some questions and answers. I did see some questions in the chat about counting. Thank you, Ricky, for answering that question about, so Sarah was asking if just one person tracks, and I'm guessing you're talking about on the data sheet, or if you confer after the survey. I think most colonies, everyone's filling out a data sheet, and then there's usually one data responsible person, maybe the colony lead, who gathers all of the sheets and combines the information. And sometimes you have a little discussion at the end of the survey. Did you see this bird? Did you see that? Just to make sure that, you got all of the information. Depending on what counting method you're using, counts would be combined at that point and then recorded on one combined survey. So hopefully that answers that. That's pretty much what Ricky said as well. And then Christopher says, if we have a survey location with a combination of visible and non-visible burrows, am I right to assume that we would use both? So no. If most colonies are going to fall into this traditional colony type, sometimes you can't see the burrow with your eyes, so there may be some vegetation in front of it, but you can say that you can say with certainty that there's a distinct burrow behind, say the madrone tree. So even if you can't see it, if you can sort of triangulate, okay, the bird is going to this one spot every time, you can number that as a burrow. The times when we use the burrows not visible is, and again, I think it's mostly, we've had some in the Rocky Cliffs when they were surveying in San Juans, but I think it's usually in a structure that's really complicated and you just can't see up underneath it. So you really don't know where the birds are going, or if they're just going up in ledge sitting, where you can't see if they're um, engaging in breeding activity. So it's really for those colonies where you just can't define any distinct burrows. So yeah, we're not combining those two things. It's one or the other types of survey. So sorry about that long-winded answer there. How do you make a burrow map? So you can take a picture with your cell phone or any camera, and I like to take the wide view, and then you can actually just mark it up. So some colonies will number the burrows as they become active. So as soon as a bird enters a burrow, it becomes active, and then it would get a number. Some colonies have burrows that where the bluffs aren't changing very much every year, and they actually pre-number the burrows and use the same numbers every year or as much as possible. So, you can write on it, you can use a markup tool. That's how I would make a burrow map. Other people might have their own ways of doing it, but as long as everyone's using the same burrow numbers. Let's see, can you clarify the settling period? Okay, so that is correct. Once everybody's in their spot, that's when you begin to settle. So sometimes you have to do some text communications and say, okay, we're ready. One person might say, okay, we're going to start settling at this time, and we'll start our survey at, 15 minutes later. So there has to be some communication. Let's see. Feel free to raise your hand as well, and if you want to say your question out loud, that's okay as well.
Hey Shannon, a quick question
Hi.
here.
Sure.
I'm wondering, I know Govinda talked a little bit about this, but understanding when a disturbance ends.
Yeah, Govinda, do you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. Well, it, it's not it's not cut and dry. So, but basically, what we have seen over the years is that whatever that disturbance is, the hawk or the eagle or the boat, everyone will fly off the water, and you'll notice that. And what we say is like most of the colony. Maybe you'll have a couple that kind of stay behind or they'll dive, but it'll make you look up if you're writing something down. It'll be like, whoa, what was that? Like most of the colony kind of flies off the water and they are out there and they're just like little specks. And then, depending on that disturbance and depending on your colony, I've been to a lot of pigeon guillemot colonies and I've been a surveyor since 2010. So I feel like I've clocked in probably about 1,500 hours watching these birds. And some colonies, like I will just cross my legs and they're flying off the water. That's Harrington, by the way. Mutiny Sands, they're just, for instance, nothing phases them, not even dogs. So it depends on your colony too, but they'll fly off the water and then they'll kind of start to slowly come back. And right about now, here in spring, you kind of look out on the water and you see they're all sort of paired up. They're sort of in twos, and then sort of like or clumps of, three or four. And so they all kind of sort of come back in and, be sort of, I don't know, palling around. I don't know, depending, of course, the tide and your bluff and all that, but you know, I don't know, maybe 15 feet away or 20 feet away or something like that. Um, depending on this disturbance, it might take a while or not. Here on Whidbey Island, I feel like I think we are the only county that still allows recreational fireworks. So around the 4th of July here, it's a big problem. And sometimes there's a lot of partiers on the beach because there's weekend cabins and the guillemots, they don't come back for a while, so that's a big disturbance. But whether it just be an eagle flying over, they'll fly out and then it just seems they kind of come back and then sort of they're just back to their regular beep, 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 hanging around the water. I don't know. What do you think, Shannon? Does that sound
Yeah,
about
I think
right?
that sounds about right. Yeah, it's a little bit subjective. Um, and it's not an exact science. So this is probably one of the toughest things we have to record. So you just kind of have to use your best judgment and you'll notice they kind of go back to their normal behaviors. They start looking like they're preening or they're playing with each other or they're coming back in. So you'll kind of notice when they shift their behavior back to their usual little selves that we would see when they're not disturbed. But it is a little bit subjective. Sometimes they don't come all the way back in. They may not return to exactly where they were and what they were doing before. But yeah, hopefully that helps. You'll just kind of get a sense for it, I think, as you do the surveys. But
Thank you both. I really appreciate those answers. It definitely helps.
Shannon, I have a question.
yeah, sure.
Um, a lot of the photographs you showed were from the perspective of a boat looking toward a really
Yes,
nice, nice,
I know.
clean
I knew
bluff.
you were going to ask that too, Maria.
Sorry.
I
I
meant to
just
say
know,
something about
yeah,
it.
we just struggle
Yeah,
trying to, get out on our beach at a really low
right,
tide so we can get enough of a perspective to get a nice wide angle with a beach with a lot of contour, a lot of vegetation
right.
on the bluff. So
It's
maybe you could give some tips also for
yeah.
making the site map and also
Mhm.
for doing the point counts when you have a lot of glare from the east facing site and maybe
Right.
what tips you have for that would be
I
helpful.
know that is really tough. Yeah, obviously the counting strategy graphics that I made are very ideal situations. Obviously, the bluffs are much more complex than that. You're not going to see all the guillemots in this nice little clump. So yeah, that's true. We have to think about the perspective from the beach and what it looks like. So I think as far as getting a wide photo, uh, if you can take one when the tide is out and just get as far back as you can. I've seen people also stitch photos together. So they'll move down the beach and take, different shots of the main bluffs where the burrows are located, and then they'll stitch them because it is really hard. I know at your beach, Maria, we actually tried from the boat to get good site photos, and it just was not really possible. You have a lot of vegetation and things like this that are in the way, so you can't even see the burrows unless you're up looking up under the tree branches. So just do the best you can. Get to know your bluff really well. It's good to kind of walk it frequently and have discussions with each other. And as long as everyone understands where they're supposed to be, what burrows they're watching, and then if you have to have a different site map for each observation point, that would be okay as well. But yeah, it's not always as easy as the little graphic that I made. That was just kind of to show how the addition and or combined count works, but it can be tough at some colonies for sure. And then did I miss part of the question? Was there something else that you asked?
I think it was yes,
Yeah.
getting the point counts when you are on the bluff looking out with a lot of glare,
Oh, right, with glare.
obstacles,
Yeah.
or just maybe to address it for the people who are new, and that's sort of a
Yeah, it's really
confusing.
tough when you have sun glare for sure. And I mean, we just do the best we can. Definitely, you're going to need to rely on binoculars when you have a lot of sun glare. I find it helps if I'm wearing a sun hat on those days. So I'm shading my eyes as much as I can. And then you really do have to rely on the binoculars and use them to scan the water. It's not as easy when you're dealing with that. Same with choppy water. The guillemots just kind of disappear in the waves. So it's tough. Just do your best to be consistent. This is one of the reasons we are not endorsing the high count method anymore. We just want to have a consistency in counting. So whoever has, the best vantage point, sometimes that's the way to go. And as long as they're counting the same way that they always do. So,
Um, I would like to interject about the making your own burrow map. And like for Double Bluff, it's kind of a long bluff, and we have 5 different sections, and I'll go and take a photo of maybe 3 or 4 photos per section, and I try and get in the snags that are at the top of the bluff so I can identify. And then it's a big slough area, so got some, logs and things on the bottom so we can identify, but it ends up being like maybe 15 pages. Um, Back in the early days before cell phones, dare I say, I would just draw it. And I would draw like the stairs at Mutiny Sands, and just pencil draw, and then just, draw in a little, hole for burrow number 12. I don't know if that helps. But, take as many photos as you have to, I would say.
yeah, that's a good point. You can even do close-ups, wide, whatever you need to do to show the burrow. Sometimes I know you've got to get up under a branch to show the burrow. Alan also made a comment about drawing the maps. We do have some folks that draw them, and every year the bluffs look different at some colonies. So yeah, you do have to change the maps. And it helps just to have all the landmarks. I know Susan Morgan does a really mean colony map that she draws every year and has the different pieces of driftwood that have floated in that year and all of the different landmarks. So whatever works the best for your colony, that's what you should run with. Whatever makes it easiest for you. And if you were to ever have a sub, as long as they can use your map, and of course, hopefully they're going to shadow you at some point as well, so that they know exactly where they need to be sitting. But yeah, hopefully that helps. It's not an exact science, but everybody just does, the best you can. Let's see. We found UPS stores most have stitching software and you can take your photos. Very reasonable. Oh, yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Melissa. Yeah, you can take them in and get a big long stitch made if you don't have the software for that. So, yeah, you guys had a great map last year.
Shannon, I have
Yes.
a so I'm at Monroe Landing, which is in Coopville, and the Bluff site, most of the burrows are on one far end, kind of around the corner of the bluff, but there's
Mhm.
one nest that is probably almost a quarter mile away. And last year, about mid-season, a bird was sitting in it, and it never went in or out. It just sat there, and it was
Mm.
there for many weeks toward the end of the survey.
Oh,
I
interesting.
check that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked this question because it brings up this idea of ledge sitting. We often get birds that will just sit at the mouths of burrows, but we don't actually see them going in and disappearing inside the burrow. And so I think without them actually going in and disappearing, we can't say for sure that they're using the burrow for more than just ledge sitting. Govinda, I don't know. Do you have a different feeling on that? I find when they're just sitting in the mouth, I tend to not record that. I
That
want to
would
see them go in the burrow.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would
but
be
interesting that it's sitting there, though. It makes you think that it's interested in the burrow. And I also, that reminds me of another point that I want to make about burrow visits. So we don't want to double count burrow visits. We only want to record when the bird goes in and not when they are coming back out, except for the occasion when, maybe it's the beginning of the survey and you didn't see a bird fly in, but all of a sudden one flies out. So at that point, there was a burrow visit. So you would record the exit only in that instance. But for the rest of the survey, if you see the bird fly in and disappear into the burrow, that becomes a visit. And then if it exits, you don't need to mark anything. And ledge sits also, you don't need to record those as well. So let's see. How about field cards, biz cards, car signs? Okay, yes. Thank you for that question, Melissa. We do have car signs on the website. They're in the survey toolbox. And we do have some business cards. I'm slowly trying to get them out to the different regional leads or people from the regions as I see them. I may have to mail some, but we do have some new business cards that have a QR code on them. And that way, if you're out on the beach and someone comes along and wants to ask you a bunch of questions and you're like, shh, I'm trying to survey here, you can show them this card and then they have a way to get more information about our survey. So we will be trying to get some of those business cards out to folks. Let's see. Field cards. Oh, and we also have some flyers. We're having them redesigned, so they're not quite ready to go yet, but we will have some sort of half-page flyers that folks can hand out to other people on the beach as well, just to, let them know about the survey, educate them a little bit about what's going on. So we will have those available that you can download and print yourself. I know a lot of folks use the public libraries. I think you can get like 40 free copies or something like that. So you can download those half-page flyers and take them out on the beach with you as well. Any other questions? Let's see. I can't see everybody. I'm hoping that I will be able to see if someone has their hands up or hand up, not hands up. All right. Well, I think that's everything, Govinda. Can you think of anything else? Did we miss anything?
Well, I do know with like a lot of the new folks, there will be like an on the beach training.
Oh, yeah.
And I think once you get on the beach, it'll all become clear. So,
Yeah.
don't be nervous. It's, the guillemots, when they have the prey in their mouth, they'll sit in that area like right in front of the burrow they want to deliver to, and they'll sit there for like 10 minutes. So you have a lot of time to identify and look at them and maybe draw a sketch and, so it's pretty easy after a while. So
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, the birds, they're shy, but they're not shy, and they really don't hesitate to perform for us. And they will hold the bird. They have a very distinctive pattern when they're going to deliver. They take off in one direction and they do a really large swoop around and up to the burrow most times. So you usually know exactly when they're getting ready to deliver. They also, as if you've read Maria's book, you'll know that they sometimes make some little chip chip sounds right before they take off. So you'll get to know their patterns really well. And when you see them do that, okay, I got to follow that bird. Follow the bird with the fish so you can see where it's going. But yeah, thank you for adding that in, Govinda. It is really important.
And watch the videos, there'll be a little more of
Yeah.
the life cycle. We probably talk about the escorts that accompany the guillemot sometimes, and you'll get it. Be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think once you're on the beach, you're going to feel a lot better about it. Like Govinda said, that's probably the most important training, is when you actually see it with your eyes. Let's see. Remy says he needs a practice quiz for tricky fish. Yeah, I'm really curious, Remy, what you're going to find up there in BC waters. We might have to add some new fish to our training. You might be teaching us some of these tricky fish. So lots of sand lances. Yeah. Yeah, I think up in Alaska too, they eat more sand lances in some areas than they eat bottom fish. So it's kind of interesting. All right.
I
Any other
had
questions?
I had one
Oh, go
question.
for
If
it.
we take photos, how do we share them if they're worthy of sharing?
Oh, send them to me, please. Yes, I love photos.
Okay,
I and I'm glad you brought that up. I do a weekly sort of a blog, a weekly survey update, and you will see that on our website. I think there's a link in the survey toolbox, and then also under, yeah, I think if you click on the volunteer tab, you'll see a weekly survey update. And so I love to get stories. I love to get photos during the week. Just be sure when you're taking the photos that you're not disturbing the birds or missing important survey
right.
action, things like this. I often bring my camera on survey, but I try to wait until the end if I can. You know, sometimes something really exciting happens and it's hard not to take a picture. But yeah, send them to me. I'm just Shannon at pigeongilmot.org. You can find my contact on the website as well. So love to get those stories
Great.
and share them with everyone. Yeah, I think it's really great to keep up with everybody. So thank you so much. I'm going to write your name down too, because now I know that you're a
Mhm.
photographer. Thank you. All right, let's see. Oh, thank you. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the evening. I just want to thank everyone so much for being here. I'm really excited to get this season underway. And yeah, just thank you for loving the birds and for caring about our survey. That's really awesome. So I hope everybody has a good evening. And maybe I'll get to see you guys out on the beach sometime. Take care.